Hey, this is Keith Long. I'm just here to give you my review of the MCU. The MCU has been fantastic. A kid who grew up reading comic books like myself, to have that wonderful display of characters on the big screen is unbelievable to me, and it's awesome. So those 23 movies in those first four phases, just unbelievable stuff by Marvel and Kevin Feige. And let me say this, that I rank these. This is my MCU rankings. But in my rankings, again, I don't think there's a bad movie. I think I'm just ranking them to tell you which ones I think are better than others. But there's not a bad MCU movie. I think all of them are worth your time and worth you watching. So you could watch and see them all. And I don't think you're going to be sorely disappointed in them. So let me say that as well. Um, 23. I'm going to do 23 through 11 on this video. And on my following video, I'm going to do 10 through 1 in my countdown. So let's start with number 23. And number 23 is going to be Iron Man 2 for me. Iron Man 2, besides the introduction of War Machine and those things, it's not very memorable. I didn't think the villain was very memorable. The stuff in Monaco or Monte Carlo, wherever they were at, I mean, there wasn't a lot there in Iron Man 2. I just felt like it was one of those movies that they just did to kind of get you to the next point, but it could have been better, and it just wasn't as good as I felt like it should have been. Let me also say number 22 on my list is Iron Man 3. I just rewatched Iron Man 3, and Iron Man 3 is not a bad movie. It really isn't. The Mandarin stuff is kind of a letdown because I think you were thinking, hoping it would be more than what it was. But the Iron Fleet stuff was really cool. Tony's struggles, I think, is really important when you think about the whole process of the MCU and you think about where Tony was at and where he ends up at the end. I think Iron Man 3 is important, kind of setting up that whole idea of how Tony Stark struggled after the Battle of New York and where he was at mentally and where he's at mentally throughout the rest of these movies. So I think in that respect, it's very, very important and very, very good stuff. For my number 21 movies in my ranking, I would have to go with The Incredible Hulk. Again, much better than the first Hulk movie, but I thought Ed Norton did a nice job. It's a good movie. I just think it's one of those movies you're going to look back on and you're going to go, if Ruffalo is in that movie with the same plot, it's probably totally different. It's probably well thought of, well regarded, and held in higher esteem because the Abomination stuff, him battling Abomination, I believe in Harlem, in front of the Apollo and things like that. It was good stuff. It wasn't bad. But number 21 is going to be The Incredible Hulk for me. Um, Number 20 is usually probably everybody else's bottom of their list is Thor: The Dark World. Thor: The Dark World is another one of those movies where you think this movie should have been better than what it actually was. I think they still weren't sure what to do with Thor. Thor is one of my all-time favorite characters as a kid, so I have a special place in my heart for Thor. I love Thor. But anytime you get Thor and Loki in a movie, it should be good. It should be better. And the problem with this one was I thought um, they just didn't build up the villain as well as they should, and he was just kind of throwaway. And in the comics, I know they've done a lot of awesome things with that villain, but what Malekith I think was his name. But here, the final battle wasn't that great when they're in Greenwich, I believe it is, and it just lacked. It just lacked so much, and I think it kind of was taking people to a new realm talking about the nine realms, and I don't know if people were ready for it. And I'm just not sure they did a nice job just setting everything up the way it should have been set up. So Thor: Dark World for me is number 20. Number 19, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Again, another fine movie. Anything you put Paul Rudd in is going to be pretty good. It's at number 19 on my list. Besides the quantum realm things and besides him getting trapped in the quantum realm at the end of it, in the whole picture of the MCU, it really doesn't play a huge role, and it can be kind of forgettable. Character wise, I mean, you still enjoy the characters and you like them, and like I said, it's a fine movie. it just in my rankings, that's where it's going to rank. It's at number 19. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Number 18 is Doctor Strange. I thought Doctor Strange was really good. I was never a huge Doctor Strange fan, reading comics as a kid or even as an adult. But Benedict Cumberbatch, he's a great actor, and so because he's a great actor, I think he helps emote that that character just kind of comes out of him, and his cockiness and his kind of his swag and his swagger. You feel it and you see it and you believe in it. And Doctor Strange has a lot of things. He's a really powerful character, but I just thought it was a really good origin story and an origin story type of movie. So Doctor Strange is at number 18 on my list. Number 17 is the original Thor. The original Thor, to me, when I think of reading Norse, uh, when I think of reading Norse mythology as a kid, getting it out of the library, and it kind of had that Shakespearean feel to it when you watched the movie Thor. It was a good movie. It was a good movie. There weren't crazy battle scenes. I know, when they're at the Ice Giants place, there's really good scenes, but as far as a battle, but even the final battle isn't crazy. It's more about Thor just becoming a good person, like him making that transformation of being kind of an arrogant jerk to being more of a caring person. So you kind of get to see that development in Thor. But I don't think it even touches on how powerful Thor actually is. But it does a nice job setting up things with Loki, which Loki is one of the greatest enemies and greatest bad guys in the MCU. And I know he's not always considered a bad guy, but he's a great character. But anyway, that did a nice setup there with Thor, and that was at number 17 for me. Number 16 is Captain Marvel. Just rewatched Captain Marvel a couple weeks ago. Captain Marvel's a really good movie. It's a kick butt movie. Uh, Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson, they do a great job in that movie. The scroll thing, I think, upset some people because the scrolls in the comics are different. But that's one of the things I like about the MCU is it doesn't just always stick directly to the comics. So it gives you a little twist, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and so I didn't see the things with the scrolls coming. I thought that was great. We know the Kree are bad, so that's kind of there. But I just thought Captain Marvel it's a good movie. It is a good movie. I would suggest it to anybody and say that as powerful as she is, I just thought it was a great origin story. It had all the '90s feels to it. It was just a really good movie. Number 15 is the one that I'm always shaking my head about because I just don't understand why it's like at number 15 or why it's in the middle of the road for people. But it's the Age of Ultron, the Avengers Age of Ultron. If I had told you James Spader is going to play Ultron, who James Spader is wonderful, like hearing his voice because he's just so dynamic and he does those things so well. And then I'm going to put the Avengers together and I'm going to introduce Quicksilver and Scarlet the Witch. And it's just, there's no reason for it not to be better than it actually is. I don't know what Age of Ultron is missing. It is one of the greatest mysteries to me in my life because when I think about the MCU, I think they've done such a wonderful job with movies. But for some reason, Age of Ultron, it's like you can start watching it. I'll even watch it. Sometimes it's on regular TV and you'll turn to it and you'll watch a couple of scenes and you're like, yeah, this is okay. But it should be better. Now, the reason it's at number 15 for me is because it's still the Avengers, and I love the Avengers. I always have. As a kid collecting comic books, I've got more Avengers comic books than I have of anybody else. So it's the Avengers. I love them. So anytime you put that group of characters together, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to eat it all up and tell you it's great, even when it's just okay. And Age of Ultron was okay, but it just had that feel of it should have been better. Now when they're in Kosovo and they're battling and all the Ultron robots are coming at them and they've got the fight scene. I mean that's good stuff, but again, I don't know what I know. The Age of Ultron had to happen because it sets up things in the future and with the Kosovo, with with the agreements and all those things. But I don't know. There was just something in Age of Ultron that was missing, and I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, Age of Ultron is at number 15 for me. At number 14 is Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man. First Ant-Man was so much better than I thought it was ever going to be. I thought this is a character I could care less about. And honestly, Ant-Man, when I think about the MCU characters, he's probably one I care the most about and that's probably thanks to Paul Rudd because he's such a good actor and just seems like a good guy. And when he plays that character of Scott Lang, you feel for Scott Lang, you feel for him and his daughter, and you care about him, and you're like, man, and you want things to go well for him, and you want things to turn out well for him. So, but the whole robbery, theft, setup is fantastic. It's a really good, it's a really entertaining movie, and it just hits all the right beats. So number 14, I have Ant Man, and number 13, I got Captain America: The First Avenger. To me, it's a fine. It's better than fine. It's a really really good origin story, intro movie, if you will. And Captain America has always been one of the guys I liked, but I think you need that Captain America movie the same way I mentioned about Iron Man 3, setting up things for Tony Stark's journey and mentally where he's at. You need Captain America: The First Avenger to figure out why Steve Rogers is the way Steve Rogers is. And I think it helps set up because when Civil War comes along, you understand his feelings and his feelings of loyalty, his feelings of um, what he stands for and what he cares about the most. And he's just this upstanding, morally upstanding guy. And you're like, yeah, that's Captain America because that's what Cap is in the comics. Cap is that guy. He's the guy that everybody else can turn to when everything is down, when all the chips are down. He's the guy who he gets up, he stands up, he still is going to fight because that's what he does. He's Steve Rogers, and he just believes in that, and you believe in him. And I think that's one of the things I always got out of the comics is that other comic book characters believed in Steve Rogers, and they believed in Captain America. So, and I got that feeling when I watched this movie. I'm like, yeah, you believe it because you're like, yeah, come on, Steve, you got to come through for us in the clutch, and he does. Um, Number 12 on my list is Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home is a really good movie. I saw it multiple times in the theater. I haven't watched it at home yet, but I liked it. To wrap up that whole phase, I thought they did a nice job of wrapping it up and still giving remembrance to those who were lost after the battles with Thanos. But I just it was a really good movie. I thought Mysterio was excellent. I never in a million years would have thought they could have pulled off Mysterio the way they pulled off Mysterio, being Mysterio, but they did. And to do that as a person growing up and reading comic books and reading Spider-Man comic books, and you're thinking like, there's no way you can ever get Mysterio to really be like Mysterio, but he was, and it was awesome. So it was just a nice ending to that entire phase. But that was my number 12. And then my number 11 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I know that's going to be higher than it is on my list than it is on other people's list. I just love Guardians of the Galaxy. I do. The biggest surprise for me probably ever has been the Guardians and how much I cared about those characters and how much I really enjoyed those characters and seeing them do the things that they've done. They're awesome. And I love the music. Um, I love the whole plot about family and together and Peter trying to figure out what he wants to be in life and figuring out where he comes from or what, who his father is and figuring out with, Gamora and just, Gamora and her sister and just, I don't know, the whole thing. It's just that family feel, and it gives you that feel of like, hey, this group is really together and they're in it for each other and they care about each other, even though they might be jerks to each other a lot and they might just be jerks in general. Um, but they got it. They really are there for each other. And so I thought that was really, really important, especially with what was coming. Knowing that the Thanos big battle was going to come eventually. But you had the Guardians kind of tied in there and kind of doing things the way they were doing them. And I just thought that was really, really big. And I thought that was special. And I liked Volume 2. Like I said, I know a lot of people thought it was too jokey or, too this or too that. But to me, it was funny. And to me, when I think about the Guardians, I think they are funny. I mean, to me, even in the most serious of moments, they're going to try to still be funny. And I think we got to see um, a lot of that even when you get to Endgame. But they do have heart. And so they do feel and they do care. And I think that's what makes them that's what makes them so likable and so relatable. But that's my number 11. So when I come back in my next video, you'll see my 1 through 10 or 10 through 1 in my countdown. And I just appreciated being able to share this out with you for my 23 through 11 for my MCU rankings. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.